Hello, so I recently picked up a recipe kit for 5 points best from the Malt Miller. I've been wanting to try this recipe for a while after watching the craft beer channel's homebrew video of that and review of it. Sounded like a pretty nice beer to me. So I started from mineral water from the supermarket. My water's pretty hard and it pretty much changes constantly between being soft and being hard, and the average is just all over the place, so I don't really like using it. I think it's pretty useless. So I went for a water profile of sort of like a Burton water profile because I've not done that before for any of my English style beers, and I was interested to see what it did. It ended up being like a pretty insane amount of gypsum to add to the water, which felt a bit strange. So it's actually 241 parts per million of calcium, 19 parts per million of magnesium, 16 parts per million of sodium, 35 parts per million chloride, 588 parts per million sulfate, 64 parts per million bicarbonate. Hello. He's just had his dinner and burped in my face. Hey, get down, boy. So, that left me with a sulfate to chloride ratio of 16.8, which is like pretty crazy. For anyone who doesn't know, like adding more sulfate to your beer will sort of like bring more of the bitterness out and dry it out quite a lot. The beer itself started out at 10.38 and finished down at 10.10 for a 4.2% beer, so nice and sessionable. Seemed to come out a bit high there because it's actually supposed to be 3.7. I'll just open up the recipe to see what starting and final gravity I was meant to get and where my beer differed. So I was meant to 10.38 I was bang on with, 10.10 I was bang on with. Wait a minute. Telling you lies here. Telling you lies, mine actually finished down at 10.06. So pretty dry actually. For a bitter, in my opinion. But yeah, bit high alcohol. So the recipe itself for the grain bill was 3.27 kilograms of low colour Marisotta from Simpsons, which is about 87.2% of the grain bill. It seemed like a bit random measurements for this recipe kit, but I guess it's scaled it down from like a full scale brew at 5 points. Usually myself, if I'm making a recipe, I'll try and go for like pretty round numbers of malt. So 170 grams of amber malt, from Simpsons as well, that's 4.5%. I do like a bit of amber malt. I'd highly recommend it. It has like quite a sort of biscuity, toasty type flavour. So 170 grams of crystal medium from Simpsons, also 4.5%. And then 140 grams of wheat malt from Simpsons for 3.7%. So I went for a full 60-minute mash. I was just following the recipe for this one. I didn't want to deviate from it too much, apart from like the water profile, which I obviously did. I think anyway. I don't know if there's any suggestions on the water profile. I think there might have been in the video, but I think I might have just ignored that and thought I'd try something out. So then onto the boil. Start with the IBUs. Actually came to 35 IBUs and a BU-GU ratio, which is bitterness units to gravity units, of 0.93, which is actually a little bit high for the style based on the BGCP guidelines, which, you know, aren't the be all and end all, and I tend to ignore them a lot myself. But I think the BU-GU is something I do like to pay attention to a little bit, just because in the past when I was starting out I was pretty like bad for putting too much hops in beers at the wrong times and making beers that were just like really bitter, or just even just the complete opposite and just having like a bit of a sweet mess with not enough bitterness in there to back it up. But yeah, 35 IBUs. So we used whole leaf Fuggles. They're actually the Fuggles at 5 points used, and I can't remember the name of the farm now, but they're from a farm down in Kent. And I tell you what, I think they're pretty good quality hops, because what I didn't get in it was what I do get with sometimes I get with English hops, where I need to leave the beer to like chill out for quite a long time to get away from some of the, like the vegetal flavour that they leave behind. So at 60 minutes. It's 46 grams of Fuggles for 26 IBU. And then 15 minutes from the end of the boil, it was 30 grams of Fuggles for 10 IBU. And then 80 grams of Fuggles at flame out, which for me, I quite like a decent amount of like hop flavour in my bitters if I can get it. I mean, the point of the beer is to be bitter, and you achieve that through hops, so why not get some of the flavour as well? Yeah, it's like I say, it's quite heavy on the IBUs in this one for a bitter. I'd definitely say that, and it does present itself in the final product, which we'll get to in a minute. And then the yeast I used was White Labs WLP 013 London Ale yeast. I just used one package there straight in to the work because it was a 1038. I thought I'd risk it. I suppose it's a little bit lazy, and I should have checked if I needed to make a starter, but I thought I'd probably be fine at that. So anyway, time for some brew footage. Best can in the world, but it's a pretty clear beer. I'd say it's only been in the keg for 9 days. I've not found it. It's a little bit hazy, but this yeast doesn't drop out amazing well. Colour of it's pretty good. It's what I'd call like a copper colour, so it's pretty light for a bitter. And excuse me, I use Brew Farm for myself, and it does give you like a little picture, like colour indicator for the beer, and like with your SRM and everything. And they're not massively accurate, but I think like your colour charts in general aren't massively accurate. So it's always good to like put the beer outside. It's always good to get a beer where you like the colour, because you've got something to go off there. Because for me, that's a pretty nice colour for like a few different styles. If you wanted to make like a more copper lager. I mean, I think this grain bill could be quite good for a lager, despite using like Marisota. I don't think there's anything wrong using Marisota for a lager. But yeah, before I get into smelling and tasting it, I managed to leave out one of the most interesting aspects of this beer was the absolute nightmare I had when brewing it, because stupidly I put, how much was it? 40, 160 grams of whole leaf hops into the beer whilst forgetting to put the filter onto my tap. So it immediately clogged the tap when I was transferring the beer out. When I say immediately, I got a good amount of the beer out and then it clogged the tap. So I ended up pouring it into the fermenter through a sieve, starting with a sort of a big bowl from the kitchen and eventually just tipping the kettle over. So it was a bit of a disaster. I got wort all over the kitchen floor, which was nice to clean up. But yeah, don't do that. I've started recently again using my hop spider that I've had a while for pellet hops. Whole leaf hops, I definitely wouldn't bother with that. I just remembered to put like, what do they call it? Can't remember they call them, but like the little fine mesh filter that screws onto like the inside of a kettle tap, because I have got one for my system. I just didn't use it because I'm stupid. But yeah, bit of a nightmare brew day. Anyway, let's move forward with the tasting. I mean, I'll start with a sniff. I mean, this glass isn't ideal for smelling, but I've had this before. It's quite like a open glass, but I've had this before in different glasses. I'm kind of picking up still. It smells to me, it's got like a really nice smell actually. It smells kind of like, I'd say Ribena, and anyone in the UK watching this will know what I'm talking about, but it smells like it's a blackcurrant drink, and that's exactly what it smells like. More on that later. I'll go in for the taste now, or mouthfeel first actually. So yeah, it's definitely very light. I mean, it finished down at 10.06. It's definitely got a very light body, but it does like sort of only a small addition of wheat in there, but it just sort of coat your mouth. It's pretty easy drinking. I mean, it's been in the keg 9 days. I mean, the head's not sticking around. I mean, I just stick the carbonation on at serving pressure and leave it for a couple of weeks usually, to be honest, and this is only 9 days in. So it's probably not all the way carbonated, but it's still at a nice level for the style. And this is the first time I've had like a pint glass of this. I've had a couple of little glasses so far. I've been sipping away at them, but taking like a good gulp out of a pint glass is actually a better way of drinking this beer, and it does coat your mouth nicely, and it's very easy to drink a few of these, which I'm not going to do today because I've got work tomorrow. Yeah, I think that's kind of changed my perspective on this beer a bit, because I was going to talk not massively negative, but a bit negatively about it. Anyway, I'm waffling, so let's go into the taste. So, I think one thing that's making this so drinkable is, for an English beer, there's not a huge amount of crystal in there. Apologies while I reach my notes. So, yeah, 170 gram of crystal medium, 4.5%. I mean, still nearly 5% of the grist, but it's not a huge amount of crystal. You're not getting any of that sort of sweetness you get from crystal. Because beers with large amounts of crystal in, I'm not a massive fan. Like, I like a quite sweet malty beer, don't get me wrong. I just don't think crystal's the best way to do that, especially with being a medium crystal. It's kind of like not a very complex flavour. I mean, it sort of claims like caramel and toffee, but I don't always get that from crystal medium myself. Something more like Munich or a Cara Munich or something. I think they had like a really nice toffee flavour. I actually really like Munich malt. That could be a good addition in this recipe if I was to try it again. Amber malt as well, like as I said before, like it adds like a biscuity like toasted malt quality, but without any like sweetness, like any residual sweetness. So that's quite like a nice addition to this beer. It's kind of subtle maltiness in this, but you can pick it up. And being Marisotto as well, that does add a bit of depth of flavour. The low colour stuff, I'm not sure if that makes a difference on the flavour, but I feel like it might, because it's not a sort of like fresh bready as you get with like, say, one of the more premium Marisottos. It's a bit darker, but you know, I think, say it's a bitter, it's more leaning towards hops, I guess, than being like in the middle. Maybe I'm wrong, actually. Probably is more in the middle. Anyway, the hops. So obviously it's Fuggles in here, and a lot of us know what Fuggles tastes like, especially drinking English beer. Like, you get a lot of Fuggles in English beer. I've got the descriptors down here. So typically you're going to get woody, earthy, pleasant vegetal. You know, people talk of mint and stuff as well, picking up mint or something like that from Fuggles, but I'm not really getting that. I mentioned before about these hops being from a particular hop farm. I did look it up. It's Hewkins hops, and these are like an award-winning Fuggles that have won like best Fuggles in the country a couple of times. And to be honest, I'm not really picking up like masses of any of those descriptors of the Fuggles. The main flavour I get out of this is like a blackcurrant flavour, like I said, like a berry type flavour, and I can't really put my finger on where that's coming from. Because getting onto the yeast, I used, like I say, WLP 013 London Ale yeast. And the script of that is a dry malty ale yeast, hop bitterness comes through well, complex oaky ester. I'm really not getting any of that at all. Just picking up some berry. I mean, I've fermented this at 20 degrees the whole time, pitched and fermented, so maybe it's like a bit of a funny ester that is not really what should be in there or what you expect to be in there, but it's nice. I like it. It sounds better to me than complex and oaky, whatever that means. One thing about this though, and it's a multitude of things I've added to this throughout the recipe that I've sort of spoken about. It is quite dry and bitter, and I can't really moan because, like I say, the amount of sulfates in here, 588 parts per million, and I think I literally put like 15 grams of gypsum just in the mash water or something close to that. So I mean, it's obviously going to be dry and quite bitter because that's the point, but to me it's maybe a bit overbearing. My missus actually tried this and said it tasted like fizzy Brussels sprouts, which is not good. But for it to have like 35 IBUs and be a bit high on the BU-GU ratio for the style, and then a really dry water profile, and then it finished at 10.06, and then the yeast, again, is a dry yeast. It's not... If I was to do this again, I definitely wouldn't go for the same water profile, because I think all those things together have made it pretty bitter. Like I say, drinking it now in a larger spoon from a pint, that's where you can take a good gulp. It kind of does work a lot better. Yeah, so I would be interested to try this recipe again and have a look what they recommended for the water profile, or just like mess with the water profile to get it maltier, because I think that would work better. But yeah, still a good beer, and I'm still going to drink it. So thanks for watching. Cheers.